What's up, everybody? This is Moose here from OccupyFantasy.com at Occupy Fantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am your host, Moose at CFB_Moose on Twitter is where you can find me. I am doing this solo. Normally we have Brian or Chris as the alternate, but both of them actually have a real life with friends and all that good stuff. So you have just me today. Again, I'm Moose, co-founder and data guru here at OccupyFantasy.com. Ready to take on your questions, break down the slate for NFL Week 8 main slate over on DraftKings and FanDuel, Yahoo as well. Normally how we take this through is we'll go through some of the top stacks, go through some of the top plays, maybe take a look at some under-the-radar plays as well, and answer your questions along the way. So, very first high level, some very interesting plays. Some news came out maybe about 10 minutes ago. Looks like Malik Willis is planning to start $5,000 on DraftKings. Seems to be in contention. I know a lot of people were talking about Sam Ehlinger, 4K quarterback for Indianapolis. I personally think it's tough to play. If you're playing low risk, absolutely see how that can go in. It allows you to pay up for a lot more studs. If you want to do some mini stacking outside of that as well. I know Bismo and Chris were talking about that in our Occupy staff chat. So we're just looking at that. But if you're not playing Ehlinger in high-risk contests, which you probably shouldn't, you can go ahead and take a look at what are some of the other stacks that we could potentially do. And what we have here is the Occupy Fantasy Daily Plug at occupyfantasy.com/NFL Daily Plug, which I also go ahead and post in the chat link as well, where we'll go ahead and if you scroll all the way toward the bottom, you'll see we have some stacking options. It seems to be some clear stacks today. So the first stack that we'll talk about is Miami at Detroit. And as Chris pointed out in the plug, best pairs with Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Mike Gesicki. If you want to bring that back, best bring backs, my favorite probably would be Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's also DeAndre Swift, TJ Hockenson as an option. All these people are highly rated in the Occupy model. And if you wanted to go ahead and do the other way, play with Detroit, pair with the best pairs with Jared Goff, St. Brown, Hockenson, Khalif Raymond also sneaks in there as well. And if you want to bring it back with Miami, it's the same pairs, except maybe you want to add like in Raheem Mostert or something like that. Again, if you guys have questions, we're here for 30 minutes, so you can go ahead and ask about that. And since Brian's not here, I'm an executive making the executive decision that, hey, we can go ahead and talk about some stuff behind the paywall as well. We can bring up the Occupy model if people have questions about that as well. And the next game stack that we'll go ahead and talk about is Arizona and Minneapolis. Just personally, my favorite game stack, the game stack that I'm playing in my single entry lineup, Minnesota side, so don't dupe me, is best pairs with Arizona, DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz, and Rondale Moore. All, again, highly rated in the Occupy model. Best bringbacks, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. You even get cute with Irv Smith. You want to flip it on the other side, best pairs with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Irv Smith. And best bringbacks with Arizona, D-Hop, Rondale Moore. And the one that I chose to bring back my single entry lineup, Zach Ertz. And lastly, but not least, we will talk about this Philly side as well, which I'm trying to see what the current line is. Yeah, the line right now is around 10.5. We talk about once you get past that 9-10 mark, become heavy favorites. You don't necessarily have to bring it back if you necessarily need to, or you don't necessarily have to stack the other side and bring back with the large favorite of Philadelphia. So we're just recommending Philadelphia side in this instance. Best pairs, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith. If you do want to bring it back, again, best bring back here is none. But yes, if you want to bring it back, Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Claypool, you can go with Pat Freiermuth as well, if that's something that you wanted to do. Deontay Johnson would probably be my favorite one. He is an underperforming wide receiver. So that's definitely one thing to go about it. First question here is worst ripper of all time. It says for punt tight end, who is the play for the Giants? So let's see here. It looks like in our model, we have Tanner Hudson at the very bottom for the Giants at 2,500. Looks like 2,500 on DraftKings, 4,100 on FanDuel. You could even maybe flip it onto the other side. Noah Fant, he's only 2,800, $300 more. There's a couple other options, but I probably, with so many other options that you don't necessarily have to punt with tight end, but if you're going to punt for the Giants, Tanner Hudson. Speaking of punt plays, there are some cheap plays, which if we go up to the running back section here, Zeke is probably going to be out. That leaves Tony Pollard in an absolute smash spot. As you can see on the right here is a top low risk play. I think high risk play as well. I think he's one of those players that you can just absolutely lock into any lineup that you have. He's fourth in our Occupy model, just behind Jacobs, Barkley, and Miles Sanders. He has one of the highest DraftKings and FanDuel OF index changes since the Occupy model released this week. 6,100 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. I think he's even a better play on FanDuel. Projected to be anywhere between 35 and 45% on either site. Yahoo projected to be a little bit more at 60%, which he's bare bones cheap on that over there on Yahoo. So any contest type, I definitely think you can play him. Another one that's right behind him in our model, D'Onta Foreman, who's a lot cheaper, 5,300, but on DraftKings a little bit more expensive on FanDuel at 6,400. I think he's also in another spot that you can play as well. So you can go ahead, go with Pollard, D'Onta Foreman, maybe throwing a cheap tight end, cheap defense, and it allows you to pay up for some of these more expensive stacks. If you want to go Malik Willis, Sam Ehlinger, you can pay for even more expensive one-off pieces. So definitely different ways to attack the slate today, or I guess tomorrow. And if we take a look at, let me see if I can pull this up here. Yes, let me go ahead. This is the Occupy model for quarterbacks, and we're just going to go ahead and talk about some of the different line moves as well. And if you take a look at line moves, some of the best line moves, Rams in San Francisco, New England, and Tennessee, actually, which seems to be the which surprised me that you'd see a line move with Malik Willis. Shows how it goes to show that Vegas probably trusts Malik Willis, does have some upside. I know his ownership says 0, but that'll get updated here in the next couple of hours. Sean says, do you guys build cores for main slate? If you could just expand on that, what you mean by that, Sean, I'd be happy to go ahead and answer that question. Let's take a look here. I have some notes. Some people here that, if we go back to running backs, let's see if this is even talked about in the plug. But yeah, Benjamin could be a smash play. James Conner's out, but Darrell Williams is a game time decision. There's something to monitor. Darrell Williams is out. Definitely go ahead and smash button I know that entire team has burned us before. Definitely probably burn us again tomorrow. But again, something to monitor. Darrell Williams game time decision. If he's out, definitely go ahead, smash Potentially you could even see that where the 3 running back lineup with Pollard, D'Onta Foreman, and absolutely pay up for some crazy stacks. Okay, so Sean says, so like the same 3 to 4 main stacks and 80% of your lineups with different supporting casts. It depends. There's different ways that you can go about it. So if you wanted to go ahead and do that, you could have one stack with 3 to 4 players from that stack, game stack, and rotate other players around. You could do the other way where you have a small core of players that you go around your game stacks. So say if you do 3 to 4 game stacks, that's kind of what I do. I have like I do the 3 entry max. I'll do a 1 game stack for each different lineup, and I'll kind of rotate some of the same players around as those one-offs. So I hope that answered your question there. So as he says, if your core goes off, you have a higher chance of picking the optimal. It depends. I normally try and go different game stacks with a small subset of one-off players that I really like. But again, the game stacks could be completely different price. Some could be cheap, some could be expensive. So could kind of go either way. Now, if there are some overall favorite plays, yeah, that I see, like for example, Tony Pollard being any core, just absolute smash spot. I would have him in my core and running across any type of lineup that I have. Yeah, and then we talk about, let's see what other notes we have here. Yeah, so the next note we can talk about is the Raiders, which was another stack that kind of popped off in my rankings, but Derek Carr's ranked third in the model. Some other players kind of pop off as well, but there's some sort of bug going around or something like this. We're not sure entirely if there's going to be any late night scratches. Players aren't going to be 100%. Definitely a situation where I am avoiding completely. And you could even maybe go on the other side where play the Saints defense. If you ever played sports or ever done anything in life where you're sick, you're not 100%. So playing professional football at the highest level while sick can definitely be a challenge. Let's see here. I'm trying to think about some other stuff. Yeah, it's kind of all the really big notes that I had. Not too much. Again, if you guys have questions, we're here until 3 o'clock, unless there are no other questions. We can go back to the wide receivers. We'll talk about the underperforming wide receivers that are this week, is what you can see in the plug. Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh, Marquez Callaway, Darnell Mooney, Michael Gallup, the tight end Zach Ertz, Tyreek Hill, and Chris Olave. Handful of different players, different teams that you can go ahead and fit any of these wide receivers into your lineups. Bring backs, game stacks, they seem to be not so expensive either, so you can go ahead and put any of these in your lineup. Sean says, your favorite inexpensive defense. We'll go ahead and we'll pull up the defense model here. And so obviously the Raiders are number one in our model. They are 3,400. But my favorite defense, call me chalky. I do like the Commanders, just 2,600 on DraftKings, 3,400 on FanDuel. Excuse me. Behind them, Saints probably, again, with Raiders having some sort of bug go around, maybe not being 100%. So if you want to go ahead and find some sort of pivot off some expensive player, off the popular Commanders, because Commanders are going to be 12 to 15%, Saints are going to be 1 to 2%, so 6 to 8 times their less ownership. You can go with the Saints, but Saints and Commanders are my favorite cheaper defenses. Kyle says, with a bunch of viable running backs this week, how are you condensing your pool within the position? Are you taking any hard stances on certain running backs? Great question, Kyle. And yeah, so every lineup that I have, whether that's low risk, high risk, multi-entry, 3-max, single entry, whatever, I have Tony Pollard in my lineup. I don't think that would change from that. Again, I'm monitoring the situation in Arizona with Eno, but if there's a case of, let me go ahead and pull up the running back model here. But if there's a case of, let's say if he's in, then it definitely matters. But I usually handle between, 6 to 10 running backs if I'm doing the 20 max or over on FanDuel, the 150 max. But yeah, I kind of go and see. I have to run the lineup builder a handful of times where if I'm not getting the right exposures to the right people, I just lower my pool. I'll probably have significantly less just because I'm not. Normally you have 2 to 3 running backs you can play, but I'm locking in 1, so really only have 1 to 2 extra spots. So I'm going to have to fool around the lineup builder and see how that works for 150 max. But to answer the question, yeah, taking hard stances on Pollard and lowering my overall number of running backs in my player pool. Great question in there. Go back to the plug. And again, yeah, so Zach Ertz as a tight end, underperforming tight end. It's always good to see a tight end on the list. Very hard to make the list in the first place. So to see a tight end do it, definitely want to go ahead and put him in your tight end spots. And there's also an update here with some trash plays that Chris wrote about. Juwan Jennings, Van Jefferson coming off the IR. Could get some role, but there's still Kupp, still a whole bunch of other players. So maybe not the best trash play, but he is still a trash play, still good. Cam Sims, I talked about him a few weeks ago, almost had that touchdown, which would have been nice. Let's see here. Do I have any notes about Juwan Jennings? No, I don't. So another trash play you could potentially play. If you're not playing the underperforming tight end Zach Ertz, He is our top high-risk option. Some more low-risk options: Irv Smith, Dallas Goddard, Tyler Higbee. And for tight end, you want to maximize target opportunity. Again, ownership is focused on Higbee, Freiermuth, and Goddard, all of which project for more than 6+ targets in the Occupy model. And so if that's the case, we can actually pull up the tight end model here. And we can see all the way over here, if we sort by projected targets, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the top 7. These are all people all projected for over 6 targets here. So you want to go ahead and take a look at the highest. Basically, you want to maximize targets for tight ends. They got to get catches, got to get yards, they got to get touchdowns. They have to get the ball first to actually score. So honestly, I would go if you're looking for a tight end, looking for a tiebreaker. They're all kind of roughly around the same. Go for either lower ownership or higher projected targets. And these are probably going to get more opportunities to catch the ball and do things. Sean says, do I give a bump in exposure to players in a dome game environment? Good question, Sean. I personally don't. The only time I'll give a bump or decrease bump would be if there's heavy wind, or like stupid, crazy torrential downpours. We did some back testing, a lot of back testing that shows that minimal wind, minimal weather doesn't really necessarily affect performance. And in some cases, it actually benefits the passing game. So, no, I don't really necessarily give a bump in exposure to dome game environments. Yeah, so that wraps up everything that I had. Who knew that things go by quickly when you don't have a second person with you? So, Brian, I hope you're enjoying the wedding that you're going to. And I guess I'm surprised Ed's not in here talking about his best, worst, best. But what we can do, we normally talk about some low-owned plays that can score a touchdown. It's usually one of the first things we talk about, or last things we talk about. So I'm going to pull up the wide receiver model here and showcasing how to use the filters and all the good stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and sort to be under $5,000 on DraftKings and under 10%. Basically, these are these low-owned guys that you're trying to go ahead, get some cheap, low-owned guys that when they score a touchdown, absolutely shoot you up the leaderboard. These are these under-the-radar plays that you really want to go for. There's a lot of decent plays here. You can go Michael Gallup, Callaway's there, Khalif Raymond, Darnell Mooney. Some of these guys at the very top are pretty good. However, I'm going to go down a little bit further, and I'm going to say, I can't just say good players. I have to say bad plays only. I'm going to go Ray McCloud for San Francisco. Ray McCloud, going to go ahead and score a touchdown. 3,200 on DraftKings. Just projected to be 1% owned. He could be the wide receiver too. He's definitely going to go ahead and get some snaps with Debo and Juwan Jennings potentially out. He definitely can get some more routes running, so I definitely like him there in that role. And you can see his change in OF index from the very start when the model gets released Wednesday to now, plus 19.9, which I think is actually the highest. We can sort by that. Yeah, so he has the highest change in OF index, which usually means higher chance of upside to score a touchdown, to get a lot of points, to exceed salary expectations. Definitely go ahead and like him to score a touchdown. Okay, cool. So we went ahead and we took a look at quarterbacks, some game stacks, some low-owned plays, some high-owned plays. I guess we can go ahead and we just sort overall. I probably should do the ownership too as well. Let's see. There we go. Perfect. Just sorted it by highest owned DraftKings index for wide receivers as I switch to the next topic, which would be answering you all's questions. So if you have any more questions, go ahead and ask. Again, we talked about the quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, some cheap defenses as well, some under-the-radar plays, some different game stacks, how to bring them back in different contest types. And as Kyle said, Ray scored last week too. I love that take. Nice. So we'll both be in it. Nice. So Tristan says Dalvin Cook or ETN. Go back to running backs here, and we'll put it in. So I'm trying to think if what is that what contest type is that, Tristan? And is that like season long or what? But we'll go ahead and wait till he answers to answer him back. And yeah, so I think that once we get through with that, it just leaves us with a couple minutes left. I'll pull back up the picture. Well, actually, go ahead and talk about the NFL strategy guide really quick. So if you guys have some extra time, go ahead and read the NFL strategy guide. If you've read it, that's awesome. If it's been a while, go ahead and read it again. I like to read it every couple of months just to make sure I'm always up on my game. It's a high-level strategy roadmap for how to build profitable NFL DFS lineups for FanDuel and DraftKings contests. Go ahead and just click the image here. It'll take you directly to our free NFL strategy guide. Always good, very evergreen topic. Gets updated every so often. Great resource. And let's see here. So it's for Tristan says for his PPR fantasy league. I'd probably go Dalvin Cook there. Yeah, I think he's just overall the better play. Excuse me. Yeah, Minnesota is one of our good popular game stacks. So yeah, Dalvin Cook there. Cool. So let's see here. Is there any other questions? Let me go there. Cool. So yeah, so we kind of covered everything. I'll stay here for another 30 seconds or so to talk. Again, if you missed this, you like the video, you can go ahead and hit the thumbs up, hit the bell for any future notifications. If you want to go ahead and have more questions, you can check out our Occupy Fantasy Discord at occupyfantasy.com/discord. We'll be answering questions. Chris will be in there pre-lock. We have the voice channel where he's breaking down, similar to like how he used to do on Periscope back in the day. We have just the voice channel open where you can ask questions, and he's breaking down any late questions, news, etc., stuff like that. That'll be tomorrow. And then we'll be back on Tuesday to review how Brian did in his 150 max small field live final appearances as well. And the last question before I take us out of here is from James Jennings. Thoughts on stacking the Cowboys game with no run back? I'm looking at my rankings. I'm trying to look at my back-end rankings here. I don't hate it. I just think there's potentially other better stacks. But if you like that stack for some reason, then I would not fault you to stack Dallas. Yep. So, okay, cool. So that'll do it. Again, if you have more questions, occupyfantasy.com Discord or Occupy Fantasy on Twitter. I'm at CFB_Moose. You can also ask me on Twitter as well. But until next time, Moose from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good day, night, wherever you're at.